The silence in the Oakville bistro was broken by a child's voice that echoed louder than it should have. Emma, a 5-year-old girl with curly hair and big eyes, couldn't decide how to eat her pasta. Her father, Michael Thompson, a successful 38-year-old businessman, anxiously glanced at his watch while trying to calm his daughter. His business meeting would start in minutes, and he had no idea what to do. "Daddy, this pasta looks like a snake. I don't want to eat snakes," protested Emma, pushing the plate away with a grimace. Michael ran his hand through his dark hair, a gesture that had become frequent in the past 2 years, since the death of his wife, Sarah, victim of a sudden illness. He adjusted his tie, feeling the weight of other customers' glances in the elegant restaurant in downtown Chicago. This meeting could determine the future of his technology company, but his nanny, Mrs. Wilson, had to leave for an emergency, and he had no choice but to bring Emma. "Please, Princess, just a little bit. Look, it's not a snake, it's just pasta with sauce. You like it, remember?" He tried once more, his voice betraying his nervousness. That's when Ashley appeared. The waitress with the warm smile and honey-colored eyes approached the table with a calm confidence that immediately caught Michael's attention. "Looks like we have a problem with snakes here, don't we?" she said, bending down to Emma's level with a conspiratorial smile. "Did you know that I don't like eating snakes either? But I have a special trick to transform snakes into something magical. Can I show you?" Emma, initially suspicious, agreed with a shy nod. Ashley asked permission and took the plate back to the kitchen. Minutes later, she returned with the same pasta, now rearranged into the shape of a flower with small pieces of cheese forming petals. "Look, now it's not a snake anymore. It's a magic flower that makes you as strong as Georgia O'Keeffe," explained Ashley, mentioning the famous American painter that Emma had studied at school the previous week. Emma's eyes lit up while Ashley sat beside her, showing her how to collect the flower's perfume with the fork. Michael observed the scene, perplexed by the ease with which this stranger had solved a problem he had been struggling with for months. There was something about the way Ashley interacted with Emma that transported him to a time when smiles were more frequent in his home. "Daddy looks at pictures of Mommy when he thinks I'm sleeping," Emma commented innocently while chewing a mouthful of pasta. "He gets sad but doesn't cry in front of me." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Michael felt his face burn with embarrassment, but when he looked at Ashley, he didn't see pity in her eyes, only gentle understanding. "Your dad seems to be very brave," Ashley responded softly. "And so are you. Sometimes remembering those we love makes us sad and happy at the same time. It's complicated, isn't it?" Emma nodded, as if Ashley had put into words something she had always known but never managed to express. As he observed the interaction, Michael felt something awaken inside him, a sensation that had been buried along with Sarah. It was as if a window had been opened in a long-closed room, allowing a fresh breeze to enter. The executives Michael was supposed to meet arrived, observing with curiosity the unusual scene. Ashley noticed and discreetly stood up, but before leaving, she quickly drew a small character with curly hair like Emma's on a napkin holding a flower. Underneath she wrote, "For the brave flower girl, Ash." Emma clutched the napkin as if it were treasure, and Michael found himself thanking Ashley with a look that communicated more than words could. In that moment, as he prepared for his important meeting, Michael wondered how many other things he had missed while drowning in work and grief. And more importantly, would he ever be able to move forward without feeling like he was betraying Sarah's memory? Have you ever wondered how you would react if you were in Michael's place? Would you move on after such a great loss, or would you close yourself off in work as he did? And what would you think of a stranger being able to connect with your child in a way that you no longer can? The meeting began, but Michael's thoughts were divided between the $1 million contract in front of him and the waitress who, in minutes, had unlocked a smile he hadn't seen on his daughter's face in months. Michael Thompson wasn't always the taciturn man, focused only on work, that he had become in the last 2 years. Born and raised in Boston, the son of university professors, he grew up with an insatiable curiosity and an easy smile. His calm and intelligent manner led him to stand out at the University of Michigan, where he studied computer engineering and met Sarah Davis during a joint project between the engineering and architecture departments. Sarah was the opposite of Michael in many ways, extroverted, talkative, with a laugh that could be heard across campus. She was born in San Francisco, raised between the city streets and the hiking trails of Muir Woods. She brought color to Michael's methodical life, while he brought stability to her adventurous spirit. They married 3 years after graduating, in a ceremony at Cannon Beach, with the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange. The technology company Michael had founded was beginning to gain national recognition, creating software for urban resource optimization. Sarah, in turn, was making her mark at a renowned sustainable architecture firm in Portland. When Emma was born, they decided to settle permanently in Chicago. They bought an apartment in Lincoln Park with a view of Lake Michigan and created a routine that balanced career and family. On Sundays, it was a sacred tradition to go to Millennium Park in the morning and stroll through the Chicago Botanic Garden in the afternoon. Sarah taught Emma how to identify plants, while Michael carried her on his shoulders, inventing stories about the century-old trees. It was during one of these Sunday outings that Sarah felt a strong dizziness, which she initially attributed to the Chicago heat. In the following weeks, new symptoms appeared: extreme fatigue, loss of appetite, joint pain. The diagnosis came like a tsunami, a rare autoimmune disease, aggressive and rapidly progressing. Michael and Sarah faced the treatment with the same partnership with which they had built their life together. He reorganized his company to work more from home, taking care of Emma while Sarah underwent exhausting treatment sessions. For a few months, there was hope. The symptoms seemed to respond to medications. Sarah even returned to work part-time, determined not to let the disease define her existence. But on a spring morning, Sarah couldn't get out of bed. The disease had returned with redoubled force, attacking multiple organs simultaneously. Within weeks, she was confined to a hospital bed. And on a rainy night in May, while Emma slept at her maternal grandparents' house, Sarah closed her eyes for the last time, holding Michael's hand as he read poems by Emily Dickinson to her favorite poet. After the funeral, held at Graceland Cemetery, Michael transformed into another person. The man who always had time to tell stories to his daughter now buried himself in work until late hours. He expanded the company, opened offices in New York and Seattle, spent days traveling. Mrs. Wilson, a kind woman from the South whom Sarah had hired when Emma was born, became more than a nanny. She was practically the only constant in the girl's life. Michael loved Emma deeply, but every look at his daughter was also a painful reminder of Sarah. Emma had the same dark curls as her mother, the same way of tilting her head when she was curious about something, even the same way of wrinkling her nose when she tasted something sour. In their rare moments together, Michael tried to compensate for his absence with presents and expensive outings, but the authenticity that once defined his relationship with his daughter was missing. On nights when the emptiness seemed unbearable, Michael would sit on the balcony of the apartment, looking at the illuminated skyline, and examine the photos stored on his phone. Images of Sarah smiling at the beach, Sarah concentrating on drawing at the table, Sarah holding newborn Emma. He didn't cry anymore. The tears had dried up months before, but the emptiness he felt seemed to grow each day. It was during one of these moments that Emma surprised him, silently appearing at his side in her unicorn pajamas. "Daddy, do you promise you won't get another mommy for us?" she asked in a sleepy voice. The question caught him off guard. "Why are you asking that, princess?" Because Julia in my class said her dad brought a new mom home after her mum went to live with the angels, like, "Mommy," explained Emma, "but I don't want another mommy, I want ours." Michael felt his heart tighten. He hugged Emma tightly and answered with a choked voice, "We're a team, you and I. Nothing will change that." As Emma fell back asleep in his lap, Michael realized how distant he had become from his daughter. She was growing up before his eyes, and he was missing precious moments. He promised himself to make changes, but work always seemed a convenient excuse to avoid confronting grief and the new reality. Until that afternoon at the Oakville Bistro, when waitress Ashley entered their lives like an unexpected ray of light, showing Michael that perhaps there was more than one way to honor Sarah's memory, by living fully and allowing Emma to do the same. If you were in Michael's place, how would you handle Emma's difficult question about not wanting another mother? And what signs do you think we're seeing about how grief has affected the relationship between father and daughter? 3. Days after the meeting at Oakville Bistro, Michael received a call that would change his plans. Mrs. Wilson, with a trembling voice, explained that she needed to travel urgently to Atlanta. Her older sister had suffered a stroke, and there was no one to take care of her. "It will be at least 2 weeks, Mr. Thompson. I'm really sorry, but it's my sister, you know. She took care of me my whole life after our mother passed away," explained the nanny, visibly distressed. "Don't worry, Mrs. Wilson. You've been our guardian angel. Go take care of your family and take all the time you need," replied Michael, hiding the worry that was already forming a knot in his stomach. After hanging up the phone, Michael faced his packed schedule of commitments. The expansion of the company into the international market was at a crucial stage. There were meetings scheduled with Japanese investors, a presentation for potential Argentinian partners, and the finalization of the new software that promised to revolutionize urban mobility in the United States. How would he reconcile all this with taking care of Emma? For a moment, he considered asking for help from Sarah's mother, Mrs. Davis, but the relationship between them had cooled since the funeral. His mother-in-law, consumed by her own grief, had become critical of the way Michael was raising Emma, always insinuating that he wasn't present enough. The visits that should have been comforting ended in veiled discussions and early departures. It was then that Michael found himself thinking about the Oakville Bistro and Ashley. The natural way she had connected with Emma had been etched in his memory. He picked up the napkin that Emma kept as treasure on her bedside table. The small illustration was already a bit faded from being handled so much by the girl. Making an impulsive decision, Michael called the restaurant. "Oakville Bistro, good afternoon," answered a male voice. "Good afternoon. My name is Michael Thompson. I was there for a business meeting a few days ago with my young daughter. A waitress named Ashley served us, and I would like to speak with her if possible." There was a moment of silence, followed by a suspicious response. "What would this be about, sir?" Michael realized how strange his request might sound. "Actually, it's a personal matter. My daughter was very impressed with her kindness and, well, I'm in a complicated situation with my daughter's nanny, needing help. One moment, please." The seconds seemed like hours as Michael waited, questioning whether he was making a mistake. Finally, a melodious female voice came on the line. "Hello, this is Ashley." "Hi, Ashley. You probably won't remember, but I'm Michael Thompson. I was at the restaurant a few days ago with my daughter Emma. You transformed her spaghetti into a magic flower." A light laugh interrupted his explanation. "Of course I remember. The little one with curly hair who thought the pasta was a snake. How is she?" The knot in Michael's stomach loosened a bit. "She's fine. Actually, she won't stop talking about you. She keeps that napkin as if it were a national treasure." "How sweet. Can I help you with something?" Michael took a deep breath. "Look, I know this will sound strange, but I'm in a complicated situation. Emma's nanny had to travel due to a family emergency and will be gone for at least 2 weeks. I have a company to run, and honestly, I don't know how I'm going to balance everything. And you're calling me because I don't know exactly, admitted Michael, suddenly feeling foolish. Maybe to ask if you know any reliable babysitting service, or if you yourself might be available to help in your free time. It would be very well paid, of course. The silence that followed made Michael instantly regret it. He was about to apologize for the inappropriate approach when Ashley responded, "By coincidence, I'm actually looking for an extra job. I attend education classes in the morning and work at the restaurant at night. My afternoons are free." Michael felt immense relief. "That would be perfect. Can we talk in person about the details? Maybe you'd like to see our home, the space." "Sure, tomorrow I'm free from 2 p.m. The next day, Michael tidied up the apartment before Ashley's arrival, something he hadn't done in months. Emma jumped with excitement upon learning that the magic flower lady would be visiting them. At 2:10 p.m., the doorbell rang. Ashley was dressed, simply but elegantly, jeans, a white blouse, and hair tied in a ponytail. Michael noticed that she looked even more beautiful in the natural afternoon light, away from the darkened restaurant environment. "Your home is beautiful," she commented, admiring the view of Lake Michigan through the living room window. Emma came running from the bedroom, holding the drawn napkin. "Look, I kept it. And I made a drawing for you too." Ashley bent down to receive the colourful paper Emma handed her. A childish representation of herself in a long green dress next to Emma and a male figure who was presumably Michael. "It's beautiful, Emma. I'll keep it forever," said Ashley, genuinely touched. Then, looking up at Michael, she added, "She has a lot of talent." During the afternoon coffee, they discussed the arrangements. Ashley would take care of Emma from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Friday. On weekends, Michael would fully assume care for his daughter. The proposed salary was accepted without negotiations, and Ashley mentioned that the experience would be useful for her thesis on early childhood education. "And you can call me Ash," she said to Emma, who seemed increasingly enchanted. "That's what my friends call me." "Are we friends?" asked Emma with sparkling eyes. "The best," replied Ashley, sealing the promise with a touch of fingers as if closing a secret pact. As he observed the interaction, Michael felt a strange mixture of emotions. There was gratitude for finding such a suitable solution to his immediate problem, but there was also something more, a hint of something he hadn't felt in a long time when noticing how the afternoon light played in Ashley's dark hair, how her eyes lit up when she smiled at Emma. What would Sarah be thinking of all this? This question tormented Michael as he showed Emma's room to Ashley. Would it be betrayal to feel attracted to another woman? Or would it just be the natural result of 2 years of loneliness? When Ashley was leaving, Emma clung to her leg. "You'll come back tomorrow, right?" "I promise," replied Ashley, stroking the girl's hair. At the door, Michael and Ashley exchanged contacts and finalized the practical details. Their fingers briefly touched when she handed him her card with her cell phone number, and Michael felt a tingling sensation he hadn't experienced in a long time. "Thank you for this," he said. "I know it's an unusual arrangement. Some of the best things in life come from unusual arrangements," she answered with an enigmatic smile before saying goodbye. That night, lying in his bed, Michael found himself thinking not about the usual work concerns, but about how Ashley's presence had, in a matter of hours, brought more life to that apartment than he had managed in months. What would you do in Michael's place? Would you hire someone you barely know to take care of your daughter, based only on a good first impression? And is it possible that he's confusing gratitude with another type of feeling for Ashley? The first days with Ashley as a nanny went by with an ease that surprised Michael. Accustomed to Mrs. Wilson's silent efficiency, he didn't expect to find the apartment filled with music, laughter, and the aroma of homemade brownies when he returned from work. On the first Friday, Michael returned earlier, hoping only to pick up some documents before a meeting with Japanese clients. Instead, he found the living room transformed. Pillows and sheets formed an improvised tent from which came muffled giggles. "Welcome to the Thompson Amazonian Expedition," announced Ashley, emerging from the structure with a crown of crepe paper leaves on her head. Emma appeared right behind with her face painted like a jaguar. "Daddy, we're exploring the forest. Ash showed photos from when she went to the Amazon with her college class, and now we're adventurers too," exclaimed Emma, clearly excited. Michael should have been annoyed with the mess. The meeting was important, and he needed to focus. Instead, he felt a pang of envy. How long had it been since he had played like this with Emma? "Sorry about the mess," said Ashley, noticing his expression. "I promise we'll tidy everything up before I leave." "No, it's not that," Michael hastened to clarify. "It's just that it looks fun." A smile illuminated Emma's face. "Come with us, Dad. You can be the biologist." "I'd love to, Princess, but I have an important meeting now. I promise that on Sunday we can continue the expedition, okay?" The disappointment on Emma's face was brief, but Michael felt it like a physical blow. Ashley noticed and intervened. "What if we record a message for the chief biologist to watch during the trip?" Emma's eyes shone again, and for a few minutes Michael found himself participating in the recording of a field report about the species found in the Amazon rainforest, which were actually Emma's stuffed animals strategically hidden around the living room. As he left for the meeting, Michael realized he was smiling, a genuine smile that seemed to have been dormant for a long time. The following week, a routine began to establish itself. Michael would stop by the Oakville Bistro to pick up Emma after work, often dining right there. The manager, Dave, a New Yorker transplanted to Chicago, already knew them and always reserved the best table near the piano that played on Friday nights. Ashley, after finishing her shift, would often join them for a few minutes, animatedly listening to stories about what Emma had learned at school or the adventures they had lived together during the afternoon. On one of these nights, while Emma was entertained drawing on the kids' menu, Michael finally asked Ashley about her life. "Did you always want to be a teacher?" Ashley smiled, distractedly twirling her water glass. "Actually, first I wanted to be an astronaut, then a veterinarian. I even considered being a lawyer. But then I started working at the Hope for Children project there in Cabrini Green, helping with tutoring for elementary school children. I fell in love with the feeling of seeing a child understand something for the first time. That moment when their eyes light up and you can almost see their mind expanding." Michael nodded, realizing how this fit with what he had observed: Ashley's infinite patience, her ability to transform anything into a learning opportunity. "And your parents? Are they from Chicago?" A shadow briefly crossed Ashley's face. "My mother is from here, from Hyde Park. My father was from Seattle. He passed away when I was 12. Cancer." "I'm sorry," said Michael, feeling a deeper connection forming between them. "It's been a long time," she replied with a melancholic smile. "My mother was a warrior, raised me and my younger brother alone. She worked as a nurse at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, crazy shifts. Maybe that's why I learned to take care of others from an early age." "You have a special way." "With Emma," observed Michael. "She talks about you all the time." Ashley blushed slightly. "It's reciprocal. She's an amazing child, curious, smart, full of life. She reminds me a lot of my best friend from childhood." The conversation flowed naturally, as if they were old friends reconnecting after a long absence. Michael realized that, for the first time in years, he was genuinely interested in someone else's life, asking questions not out of politeness, but out of a genuine desire to know more about Ashley. When she needed to return to work, Emma protested but was calmed with the promise that they would make cookies together the next day. On the way home in the taxi, Emma fell asleep in her father's lap, exhausted after a day full of activities. Michael observed the city lights reflected in Lake Michigan, thinking about how his life had changed in just 2 weeks. The apartment, once a silent space he barely noticed as he transitioned between work and bedroom, now seemed to gain new life. There were Emma's drawings everywhere, storybooks left open on various surfaces, even a small vase of sunflowers on the center table. Ashley's gift to bring more sunshine into the house, as she had said. Michael laid Emma in her bed and watched her for a few moments. The dark curls spread across the pillow, the tranquil breathing, the small freckles on her nose, so much like Sarah and, at the same time, an entirely unique person. "We're happy again, aren't we, Daddy?" Emma had asked that morning as he helped her choose clothes for school. The question caught him off guard. "Weren't you happy before, Princess?" Emma shrugged, with that disconcerting honesty of children. "You didn't laugh. And you talked little. Now you tell stories again and even played hide-and-seek with me and Ash yesterday." Michael felt a mixture of guilt and relief. He hadn't realized how much his grief had affected Emma, or how the recent small changes had been noticed by her. Later that night, unable to sleep, Michael found himself again on the balcony, looking at the illuminated city. This time, however, he wasn't looking at old photos on his phone. Instead, he was thinking about the future, something he hadn't done in a long time. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of his phone. It was a message from Ashley. "Emma forgot Spots, the stuffed giraffe, at the restaurant. Dave kept it for you. Good night." Michael smiled at the phone, feeling a wave of gratitude for this small gesture of consideration. He replied thanking her, and after hesitating for a moment added, "Tomorrow is Saturday. Emma and I are going to the Botanic Garden in the morning. Want to join us?" He sent the message and immediately felt butterflies in his stomach, like a teenager asking someone out for the first time. He was about to send another message, saying he understood if she had other plans, when he saw the 3 dots indicating that Ashley was responding. "I'd love to. I've never visited the orchid house there. What time?" As they arranged the details, Michael questioned himself. Was he just being kind to someone who had helped him and Emma so much? Or was there something more? And if there was he ready for it? Have you ever caught yourself questioning your own intentions when approaching someone new after a significant loss? How do you know if you're ready to move on or just trying to fill a void? The Chicago Botanic Garden was resplendent under the Saturday sun. The tall trees formed a majestic avenue that seemed to lead directly to the sky, while children ran between colorful beds of flowers. Emma, wearing a straw hat and a yellow dress, skipped ahead of Michael and Ashley, occasionally stopping to point out some insect or flower that caught her attention. "Look, Ash, a blue butterfly, just like the one in the book you read to me." Ashley smiled, bending down to Emma's height. "It's a morpho, Princess. Remember we talked about metamorphosis? It was once a caterpillar." Emma's eyes widened, fascinated. "I want to turn into a butterfly when I grow up too." "You already are," replied Michael, observing how different his daughter seemed in recent weeks. More curious, more talkative, more present. A little more each day. Ashley had arrived punctually at 9 a.m., wearing a light dress printed with foliage and a straw bag that soon revealed homemade snacks, sunscreen, insect repellent, and even a small guide to plants of the Botanic Garden. "I was studying a bit," she explained, blushing slightly under Michael's admiring gaze. The morning passed with a naturalness that surprised everyone. They visited the pond with giant water lilies, the orchid house that left Ashley amazed, and even fed the colorful fish in the small pond. Michael, who knew the place well from numerous visits with Sarah, found himself seeing the garden through new eyes, those of Ashley, who photographed details he had never noticed, and those of Emma, who seemed to rediscover a place she already knew. Around noon, they sat under the shade of a large tree for the picnic prepared by Ashley. Natural sandwiches, fruits cut in fun shapes, and chocolate cookies that she and Emma had made the day before. "Do you always prepare so well for everything?" asked Michael, impressed with the organization. Ashley laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "My mother says I have planning OCD. I can't leave the house without thinking of all possibilities." "Quite a superpower," he commented, savoring one of the cookies. "Sarah was like that too, always prepared for any eventuality." It was the first time he mentioned Sarah's name in Ashley's presence outside the context of explaining the family situation. The name hung in the air for a moment, but instead of the embarrassment Michael expected, Ashley just smiled gently. "Emma told me about her. She said her mother painted beautiful pictures and knew the names of all the plants." "Yes," confirmed Michael, feeling a familiar lump in his throat, but also something new, the ability to talk about Sarah without the pain overshadowing the good memories. She was an architect, but her secret passion was botany. We came here almost every Sunday. This was her favorite place in Chicago. Emma, who was drawing in the small notebook Ashley had brought for her, looked up. "Mommy said that here you could hear the plants breathing if you stayed really quiet." Michael felt his eyes water. He didn't remember hearing that particular phrase, but it sounded exactly like something Sarah would say. There were so many conversations between mother and daughter in which he hadn't participated, so many small moments that Emma kept as treasures in her childish memory. "Let's try," suggested Ashley softly. "Let's be really quiet and listen to the plants breathing." The three closed their eyes and remained silent for a few minutes. The distant noise of other visitors, the singing of birds, the rustling of leaves in the light breeze, everything mixed in a natural symphony. Michael felt a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. When he opened his eyes, he saw that Emma had fallen asleep, leaning against the tree trunk, the pencil still loose between her fingers. Ashley was also observing the girl with such a tender expression that something moved inside Michael's chest. "Thank you for today," he said in a low voice so as not to wake Emma. "It's been different since you appeared in our lives." Ashley turned to him, her eyes reflecting the light filtered through the leaves above. "Different how?" Michael considered the question, seeking the right words. "Lighter, as if the colors were returning. I don't know how to explain it properly." "You don't need to explain," she replied. "I understand." Their gazes met for a moment that seemed to extend indefinitely. Michael felt an almost irresistible impulse to touch her face, to discover if her skin was as soft as it seemed. But the moment was interrupted when Emma stirred in her sleep, murmuring something incomprehensible. The spell broken, Michael moved away slightly, feeling simultaneously relieved and disappointed. What was happening to him? Was he really ready for this? Whatever this meant. On the way home, Emma insisted that Ashley come with them. "You promised you'd show me how to do that star embroidery, remember?" Ashley looked at Michael, clearly awaiting his approval. He nodded, trying to ignore how eager he was to prolong the day with her. In the apartment, while Emma and Ashley were entertained with embroidery in the living room, Michael prepared coffee in the kitchen, observing them through the half-open door. There was something deeply right about that scene, as if an empty space was finally being filled, but at the same time, an insidious guilt began to grow inside him. In the bathroom, washing his hands, his eyes met the only photo of Sarah he kept outside the bedroom, a portrait of her smiling at North Avenue Beach, hair in the wind. "What would you think of all this?" he murmured to the image. "Would you be angry with me for feeling what I'm feeling?" Back in the living room, he found Emma showing Ashley the family photo album, something he hadn't opened in over a year. "This is Mommy at her graduation," explained Emma, pointing to a photo of Sarah wearing a cap and gown. Daddy said she made the best project in the whole class. Ashley looked at Michael, who had frozen. At the entrance to the living room, "She was beautiful," she commented softly. "Emma has her eyes." "Yes," Michael managed to reply, approaching hesitantly, "and her stubbornness too." For more than an hour, the three leafed through the album together, with Emma serving as guide, telling half-stories that Michael completed. To his surprise, talking about Sarah this way, sharing memories of her with someone who never knew her, didn't hurt as he had imagined. On the contrary, there was something comforting about seeing Sarah through Ashley's curious and gentle eyes. When Emma finally began to yawn, Michael took her to brush her teeth and put her to bed. Ashley waited in the living room, distractedly examining the books on the shelf. "She fell asleep almost instantly," Michael informed as he returned. "I think the day at the garden wore her out. Children have that good quality. When they're tired, they simply sleep," commented Ashley with a smile. A strange silence settled between them. Michael realized it was the first time they were completely alone, without Emma as the natural mediator of their interactions. "Would you like some wine?" he offered, trying to dispel the sudden tension. "I have an Argentinian Malbec that's begging to be opened." Ashley hesitated. "I don't know if I should." "Just one glass," Michael gently insisted, "to celebrate the success of our outing." She ended up accepting, and they sat on the balcony, contemplating the city lights. The conversation flowed naturally, passing from light topics like favorite movies and places in Chicago that Ashley still didn't know, to deeper subjects. "How did you know you were ready?" she suddenly asked after a moment of comfortable silence. "Ready? To move on, after Sarah." Ashley immediately seemed to regret it. "I'm sorry, it's very personal. I shouldn't have asked." Michael swirled the wine in his glass, thoughtful. "I'm not sure if I am ready. Honestly, until a few weeks ago, I didn't even consider the possibility. And now..." Their gazes met again, and this time the unasked question between them was almost palpable. "Now," Michael began, feeling his heart accelerate, "now I'm confused. I feel things I didn't expect to feel, and I don't know if it's right." Ashley put her glass on the table and stood up. "I think I should go." "Please don't." Michael also stood up, dangerously close to her. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." "I'm not uncomfortable," she replied, her voice almost a whisper. "I'm scared. This wasn't in the plans, Michael. I came to work as your daughter's nanny. I don't want to complicate things for you both." "What if I said things are already complicated?" he asked, taking a step forward. "That I can't stop thinking about you, that Emma adores you, that I feel like I'm waking up from a long sleep since you appeared?" Ashley's lips parted in surprise, but before she could respond, Michael's phone rang shrilly. He looked at the device, annoyed by the interruption, but his expression changed when he saw the name on the screen. Mrs. Wilson. What would you do in Michael's place? Would you answer Mrs. Wilson's call, or ask to return it later, taking advantage of this crucial moment with Ashley? And is he really ready to move on, or is he just confusing gratitude and momentary attraction with something deeper? Michael looked at the phone, torn between the moment with Ashley and the unexpected call from Mrs. Wilson. "I need to answer," he finally said. "It might be important." Ashley nodded, visibly relieved by the interruption. She took a few steps back, creating a safe distance between them, while Michael answered the call. "Hello, Mrs. Wilson? Is everything all right?" The familiar voice of the nanny sounded tired on the other end of the line. "Mr. Thompson, I'm calling to give you news. My sister is recovering well, thank God, but she'll still need help for a few more weeks." Michael felt a pang of guilt when he realized that his first reaction wasn't concern for Mrs. Wilson's sister, but a secret relief at having more time with Ashley. "Don't worry about anything, Mrs. Wilson. Take all the time you need. Emma and I are managing well here." Did you find someone to stay with the little one while you work? Yes, a friend is helping, he replied, avoiding looking at Ashley. Emma is loving it. After a few more minutes of conversation, Michael hung up and turned to Ashley, who was now collecting her bag and clearly preparing to leave. Do you really need to go? He asked, trying not to sound as disappointed as he felt. I think it's better, she replied with a shy smile. It's late and we need to think about all this, don't we? Michael knew she was right. Whatever was happening between them was too complicated to be decided in one night, after a few glasses of wine and an emotionally intense day. I'll walk you to the cab, he offered. On the sidewalk in front of the building, waiting for a cab to pass by, they remained silent for a few moments. The night breeze carried the scent of the nearby lake, and the city lights created an almost cinematic setting. It was a perfect day, Ashley finally said. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for accepting, Michael replied. Emma never had so much fun at the Botanic Garden. Before they could say anything else, a cab appeared and stopped when Ashley signaled. She turned to say goodbye, and for a moment Michael thought about kissing her. Instead, he extended his hand in an almost formal gesture that seemed ridiculously inadequate after everything they had shared that day. Ashley looked at the extended hand and laughed, a light laugh that broke the tension. Instead of shaking it, she stepped forward and hugged him briefly. See you Monday, she murmured before getting into the cab. Michael stood on the sidewalk, watching the vehicle drive away with a strange feeling of simultaneous loss and hope. Back in the apartment, he checked that Emma was still sleeping soundly and went to his room. Sitting on the edge of the bed, he took from the nightstand the wedding ring he had worn for years after Sarah's death, a ritual he couldn't abandon, even knowing he needed to move on. What should I do, Sarah? He whispered to the golden ring in his palm. How do I know if it's the right time? How can I be sure I'm not just feeling lonely? That night, Michael dreamed of Sarah. It wasn't one of the usual painful dreams, where he saw her sick again, or where she disappeared while he desperately tried to reach her. This time, they were in the Botanic Garden, and Sarah smiled at him with that smile that lit up her eyes. You know what to do, she said in the dream, her words as clear as if she were really there. You always have. Michael woke up to the sound of Emma calling him. The clock read 6:23 on Sunday morning. Daddy, wake up. Can we make pancakes like Ash taught me? Please. Sitting up in bed and rubbing his eyes, Michael smiled at his daughter. Pancakes, huh? Since when did you become a pancake expert? Ash showed me how to make them. It's easy. We put flour and egg and milk and mix everything and then put it in the pan. Come on, Dad. Following Emma to the kitchen, Michael was surprised by the clarity he felt that morning. The dream of Sarah seemed to have left an almost physical impression, as if she had really given him permission to move forward. Sunday passed peacefully. Father and daughter made pancakes, with questionable but satisfactory results, watched cartoons on Netflix, and spent the afternoon at North Avenue Beach, building elaborate sandcastles that Emma insisted on photographing to show Ash tomorrow. That night, while reading a bedtime story to Emma, the girl asked a question that caught Michael off guard. Daddy, do you like Ash? Of course I like her, he replied cautiously. She's very nice and takes great care of you. Emma shook her head, with that expression of someone who thinks adults are excessively slow to understand the obvious. Not like that, Dad. You like her, like a boyfriend. Michael felt his face heat up. Why are you asking that, Princess? Because you smile differently when she's here. And she does too. You both look silly, just like Julia and Peter in my class, who are boyfriend and girlfriend, and look at each other weird during recess. Unable to contain a laugh, Michael closed the storybook. Is it that obvious? Emma nodded seriously. Everyone sees it, Dad. Even Dave from the restaurant asked if you two had kissed yet. He what? Exclaimed Michael, genuinely surprised. It was when you went to the bathroom yesterday. He asked Ash if you had kissed, and she turned red as a tomato and said no, that you were just friends. Michael didn't know whether to laugh or feel embarrassed by the idea that his love life, or lack thereof, was being discussed so openly. "And you, Emma? What do you think about all this?" The girl shrugged, apparently less concerned about the issue than he expected. "I like Ash. She knows how to make pretty braids in my hair and doesn't lie to me saying broccoli is delicious like Mrs. Wilson does." Michael laughed again, amazed by the simplicity of child logic. "But aren't you worried that I might forget about Mommy?" Emma's eyes, so similar to Sarah's, suddenly became serious. "Mommy is in heaven, Dad. She's not coming back. Grandma Davis explained it to me. But Ash is here, and she makes you laugh again." Michael felt a lump in his throat. "You're very smart, you know. Sometimes I think you understand things better than I do." "It's because I'm small," explained Emma seriously. "Children see better because they're closer to the ground." Kissing his daughter's forehead and turning off the light, Michael thought about how children sometimes have a wisdom that adults, with all their complications and fears, end up losing along the way. The next morning, after dropping Emma off at school, he made a decision. Instead of going straight to the office, he headed to Graceland Cemetery. He hadn't visited Sarah's grave in months, always finding excuses to postpone this moment. The cemetery was quiet at that hour of the morning, with only a few visitors scattered along the tree-lined paths. Michael walked with slow steps to the Davis family plot, where Sarah had been buried next to her grandparents. He placed the flowers he had brought, sunflowers, her favorites, and sat on the small stone bench. "Hi, Sarah," he said softly, feeling both foolish and comforted by speaking out loud. "Sorry I haven't come before. I guess I was afraid of what I might feel, or what I might not feel anymore." A light breeze stirred the leaves of the nearby trees, and Michael continued. "Something happened that I didn't expect. I met someone. Her name is Ashley, and, well, she's wonderful with Emma. Different from you in many ways, but she has the same heart. The same sparkle in her eyes when she talks about the things she loves." Michael paused, gathering courage for the next words. "I don't know where this will lead. It might not go anywhere. But for the first time since you left, I feel possibilities. As if there's a future beyond daily survival, you know. And I needed to come here, I don't know. Maybe ask your permission or just say that no matter what happens, you will always be part of me and Emma. Always." The words seemed inadequate, but they were sincere. Michael spent a few more minutes in silence, watching how the sunlight created patterns through the tree leaves, feeling a peace he didn't expect to find there. As he left the cemetery, he took out his phone and, before he could overthink it, sent a message to Ashley. "Good morning. I thought a lot about our conversation on Saturday. Can we talk calmly tonight after Emma goes to sleep?" The response came almost immediately. "I've been thinking a lot too. Yes, we need to talk. See you later." The workday passed in a blur. Michael had difficulty concentrating in meetings, and his colleagues noticed his distracted behavior. "Are you in love, Thompson?" joked Nathan, his partner, after Michael made errors in a presentation for the third time. "I've never seen you like this." "Maybe I am," replied Michael, surprising himself with the admission. When he arrived home in the late afternoon, he found the apartment filled with the aroma of something delicious being cooked. In the kitchen, Emma and Ashley were preparing what appeared to be a beef stroganoff. "Daddy's home," announced Emma, running to hug him. "We're making your favorite food. I told Ash that you love stroganoff with mushrooms." Michael looked at Ashley over Emma's head, and something silent passed between them, a mutual recognition that they were in a kind of limbo, awaiting a conversation that could change everything. Dinner was cheerful, with Emma dominating the conversation with elaborate stories about her day at school. When it finally came time to put her to bed, the girl resisted only briefly before falling asleep, exhausted after a day of playing with Ashley. Back in the living room, Michael found Ashley on the balcony, contemplating the city view. "She's asleep," he informed, joining Ashley and maintaining a respectful distance. "She had a busy day," replied Ashley, smiling slightly. "We built a rocket with cardboard boxes and visited all the planets. Even Pluto, which according to her was unfairly demoted." Michael laughed. "She's been fascinated with astronomy since we watched that documentary on Netflix." A comfortable silence settled between them for a few moments, until Ashley finally turned to face him directly. "Michael, Before you say anything," he gently interrupted, "I want you to know that I went to the cemetery today. I visited Sarah." Ashley seemed surprised. "And how was it?" "It was liberating in a way. I felt I needed to tell her that maybe I'm ready to move on." Ashley nodded, her eyes never leaving his. "And are you ready?" "I think so," Michael responded honestly. "Not completely, perhaps. There will still be difficult days, dates that will always be painful. But for the first time in 2 years, I feel as if there's room for something else besides pain and longing." "I'm afraid," Ashley admitted softly. "Afraid of not being good enough. Afraid that you're confusing gratitude with something else. Afraid of becoming even more attached to Emma and then having to leave if it doesn't work out." Michael took a step forward, reducing the distance between them. "I'm afraid too, of moving too fast, of using you as a way to escape loneliness, of Emma getting hurt if something goes wrong." "Then maybe we should take it slow," suggested Ashley. "One step at a time." "One step at a time," agreed Michael. "Starting with coffee, perhaps. Just the two of us. Without Emma, without work, obligations, just to get to know each other better." Ashley smiled, and Michael felt that same warmth in his chest that he had been feeling every time he saw her smile. "I would really like that." Michael extended his hand, and this time there was nothing formal about the gesture. Ashley intertwined her fingers with his, and together they stood watching the city lights, each absorbed in their own thoughts about possibilities and new beginnings. The next morning, when Michael dropped Emma off at school, the girl surprised him with a final question before running to join her classmates. "Daddy, did you ask Ash on a date?" Michael was dumbfounded. "How did you—" Emma rolled her eyes, exasperated. "I heard you talking last night. I was thirsty." "Emma Davis Thompson, you should have been sleeping," Michael scolded, but without being able to hide a smile. "So, did you or didn't you?" "I invited her for coffee," he admitted. "We're getting to know each other better." Emma nodded. "Satisfied. Good, but don't forget to bring flowers. Julia in my class said her dad always brings flowers when he goes out with her new stepmom." And with that pearl of wisdom, Emma ran into the school, leaving Michael between laughter and amazement at his daughter's insight. That afternoon, when Ashley arrived to pick up Emma from school, she found Michael waiting with the girl, holding a small bouquet of daisies. "What's this?" she asked, blushing slightly. "An advance," he replied with a smile, "for our coffee on Saturday." Emma, observing the scene with approval, gave an exaggerated sigh. "Finally, you two are so slow." Michael and Ashley exchanged an amused look, and in that moment, under the afternoon sun in Chicago, with Emma cheerfully skipping ahead of them, life seemed full of new possibilities. The future was uncertain, of course. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, perhaps even occasional setbacks. But in that instant, Michael felt a certainty he hadn't experienced in a long time. Life, with all its unpredictability and beauty, continued, and he, finally, was ready to continue with it. Have you ever experienced a moment when you realized you were ready for a new beginning? How did you know it was the right time? And to what extent do we need permission, whether from ourselves or others, to seek happiness again after a loss.